So, you just saw a lesson that supported students in using language to engage with the text. And the strategy that we explored in this lesson was all around creating text based questions that were aligned to the CLO. That is, the language helps students to meet the lesson objective as they explored the content and engaged in the content of the text. So, again, we took the CLO, we focused on the language, and they used that language to respond to the questions. Now, the way to make this work is to think deeply about the questions you want to ask, aligned with the text or referring to the text that elicit the language form that students are practicing that day. So, for the lesson that we just saw, the teacher wrote questions about the text that were aligned to the objective, and they also required students to use that language form that they had learned and practiced during the I do. So, as I said, it's all in the question. When you start reading a text, start thinking about what questions you can ask about the text to support students in meeting the content and the language objective. And you saw that I used a few different tools to have them engage with this. We'll explore those tools in just a moment, but I do want to just share some concrete steps that can help support you in doing this. So first, as you read a text that you're going to use for the week, reground yourself in the language of the CLO for that day or that week. That can help you start thinking about the lens that you want students to use as they're reading the text. Next, you'll look for opportunities for students to practice that language as they read and discuss the text. So again, if the text looks at a lot of kind of cause and effect, is looking at the impacts of a certain situation, you would want to ensure that students are using cause and effect language as they reflect on and really engage with the text. If the text focuses on compare and contrast, in order for students to talk about that text, they would need comparative conjunctions. And so, again, your job is to look at the CLOs and determine how students can use that language from the CLO to engage in the text. Next, you'll write multiple text-based questions that support students in practicing the different language forms. And last, you can model one example for students on how to use that language when responding to a text-based question. This modeling piece is really important to ensure that students know what our expectations are. And so in the previous lesson, you saw me model how I would read the paragraph aloud and then how I would use that language to respond to the text. And you saw me use a think aloud to be able to do that. Now, we know you are in a number of different instructional settings right now. And so there were a few tools that I used to engage students in a remote setting. And I think these tools would be helpful across settings as well. So you notice that I had a Google Meets. I had different Google Meet groups for each pair, and that's how they would engage in the partner reading. I also used a shared note catcher that they opened so that they could capture their responses. Both of those were using tools through Google Drive or through the Google platform. However, if you are using Newsela, or if you have a Newsela account, you might also consider using the Newsela annotation tool. With the annotation tool, you're able to type questions directly into the article and then require students to respond. And we have a few screencasts on how to do that, and I'll be sure to share those at the end. So I invite you to take a moment and we'll pause this screencast and you can reflect on how you might use some of these strategies in future instruction.